Welcome everyone to another episode of the Balance and Empathy Show. Hello, today we have an amazing show prepared for you. We are talking about raising awareness for child abuse, and we have a very important guest with us to educate you about this today. We are here today with Chrissy Sykes from the UK and Ashok from Canada and me from the Netherlands. Chrissy is going to talk about the My Body is My Body program. Chrissy Sykes is the creator of the My Body is My Body program. And this is a program that is also being taught by the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Foundation. And it's been taught actually worldwide. And Chrissy will go into that after this. Now, this My Body is My Body program will give you a different, positive, and empowering way to approach the difficult subjects around child abuse and body safety with children using music and cartoon animations. So, this is quite distinctive if you compare this to other programs. If you're watching, then please let us know where are you watching from. Put your country in the comments because we are always very curious where our viewers are based. So put it in the comments, and if you have any questions regarding this program, regarding raising awareness about child abuse, then please put them in the comments and we do our best to answer your question. So Chrissy, over to you. Would you share a little bit about the program My Body is My Body and what it's all about?
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you so much to both of you for inviting me today. The
Most
My
welcome.
Body is My Body program is a body safety program where we're teaching children awareness about their bodies and also that people shouldn't be hurting them, shouldn't be sexually abusing them. And these are difficult subjects that people don't often want to talk about or don't feel comfortable talking about. And even as a parent, I know, when it comes to difficult subjects, we sit with our kids and we go, oh, how do I approach that? Or what do I do? So the program is there to help parents, help teachers, everybody that deals with children, initiate the conversation about our bodies, and using the music helps to sort of bridge the the problem of initiating the subject. So you play the songs, you play the animations to the kids, and then children will ask questions. So they will initiate the conversation with you as you talk about this. So that's the program is it contains 6 songs, which all have different objectives and different subjects to initiate different conversations with kids. Like the second song is a rap song where we talk about feelings, and things. If things don't feel right, you have the power to say no. If somebody wants to touch your body, you have the power to say no. But even you can bring in peer pressure, you can bring in all sorts of things with these songs and say somebody wants you to do something that feels uncomfortable, or that your mom and dad have told you not to do. If it don't feel right, don't do it. That's the song. And we have a song called the What If game, where you can give children scenarios of what if this happens, what would you do? We have a song about who to tell if you've got a problem, and also included in I've got tutorials for each song. So included in the tutorial, it tells children how they might feel if they have a problem. You might feel scared to tell somebody you've got a problem. You might shake, your voice might crack. And we need to tell children that this is all normal. You're not different because you feel these things. This is what all of us, including adults, feel like when we've got to tell about a problem. Um, we also have a song about say no to secrets, because we know that abuse thrives in secrecy. and to tell children that we don't keep secrets, especially if they're about somebody hurting us or somebody touching our body. So, in a nutshell, the program is about starting these important conversations with our children to protect them from any kind of abuse.
Thank you, Chrissy, for that beautiful introduction. We already have some comments coming in from the audience and a question. The first question from Drazen Zvertan, if I pronounce it correctly. If I don't, I apologize. He says, do you consider the parental alienation as a child abuse?
Parental alienation,
Yeah.
as in.
Well, I deal with parental alienation syndrome
Okay.
quite frequently in my country, and unfortunately, it's very complex, and it typically happens when two people who were getting along are no longer getting along. They have young children, and when they separate, one parent alienates the other parent from
Okay.
the children, so the children no longer have access. And sometimes, and this is not when something has actually happened. So if there's abuse, sexual abuse or physical abuse, and a parent has been told by the courts that they can only have supervised access, then that's not quite the same. Parental alienation typically happens when one parent creates optics that the other parent is toxic when in fact the other parent isn't. And it actually is a form of it's extremely stressful, and it is a form of abuse. And most of the alienated parents are men.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't quite sure in what context we were dealing with there. But yes, I totally agree with you. We have to, you have to keep your personal side or your relationship side separate. It's so important for children to have their parents and not have one parent talking badly about the other parent. I myself have been through a divorce, and so I know, but I always maintained that I would never, ever say anything in front of the children about my partner because, and I know it's easy for people to get into that, your father or your mother, but we mustn't do that. It's for the children to grow up in a happy environment. We need to keep things on a level playing field, and it's important that both people contribute to that child growing up.
Yes.
Right.
Couldn't agree more. We have another question coming in, and then I'd like to dive in a little bit more into the program, if you don't mind. Joe Vic Africa is asking, is it right as a father to teach his female children about sex education? What do you think about that?
I think with the My Body program, which is what I can speak about, is that it could be taught by anybody, a father, a mother, grandparents. I don't think that is a problem, and I don't think that I'm not sure what you think, Ashik, but I don't think sex education is a problem for a father to talk to a child about. It's something that we should all be more open about, and not have this phobia about, or we can't talk about that. The My Body is My Body program is very simple, and it doesn't actually go into sex education very much. It just teaches kids that they have a body and it belongs to them and only them, and they have a right over their body. And I think that is the biggest thing that we want to get over to children, is that their body is their own. People shouldn't have a right to hurt them, touch them, beat them, do whatever to them. They have a right to say no and go and tell somebody. But I personally don't think that there's a problem with fathers teaching their children about sex education, whether they're girls or boys.
No. Me either, and sometimes you don't even have a choice, right? What if you are the only parents in your
Yeah.
family as a father, when the mother, for example, isn't there anymore for whatever reason, then you don't have a choice, right? You have to
And
be
sometimes you have a better relationship. I mean, when I was growing up, I had a much better relationship with my father than I did with my mother. I could talk to him about anything. So, I think it all depends about the dynamic in the family
true.
and who the kids feel comfortable with. So,
Yeah, I am a father and I do have a daughter. And I did spend a lot of time just explaining sexuality to my children when they were young. And what will probably come out in the show, it's not necessarily the actual information. That's important too. It's the boundaries.
mm,
And the beauty of teaching a child anything is that you can teach them the boundaries. Children are naturally curious. And if you actually think about it, human beings have been on the planet for 300,000 years. Kids were exposed to human sexuality right away. In a cave, if their mummy and daddy are making another sibling, then they're going to experience that very, very young. What we have to insist upon, though, is the safety and the boundaries. And I'm very sure we get into that very quickly.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Chrissy, can you tell a little bit about, how it all started with the My Body is My Body program?
Oh. I'll try and do a quick version of it. I was in America. I had written a song which somebody heard. The song I wrote was about a little girl that was killed by her parents. Her name was Kimberly, and she had a traumatic life. She was burnt. She had cigarette burns all over her. She was kicked. She was starved. And they finally, her father killed her by kicking her in the head. And he kicked her so hard that he actually left a shoe print in her temple. And I read the story, and one of my kids was 4 at the time, and Kimberly was 4. And it just so moved me that I wrote this song about this poor child. And anyway, it was picked up as by this person that I played it for, and he was the chairman of the state of Texas Child Welfare Board, and they used it for their Child Abuse Prevention Month awareness campaign. So I recorded it, and then we did a month-long tour all around Texas, and to raise awareness. And we also raised lots of money by selling the song. But what happened was, the first day that we went to promote it, they had arranged for me to go into a school, and there was 500 kids. And I mean, I was a singer, but I wasn't a speaker. And so I got in front of these 500 kids, and I just actually started blabbing about things about abuse and what kids need to be aware of. And then all of a sudden I shared that I had been sexually abused as a 4 and 5-year-old, which I'd never ever told anybody about. And there I was telling 500 people. And I sang some songs and just spoke to these kids. And then after the show, all these kids came forward saying, this has happened to me and I've been abused. And it was like, oh my goodness. And the next day they'd arranged for me to speak to 2,000 children. I went to a high school, and they put me in this big hall with all the kids on the bleachers. And again, I just did exactly the same thing. So by the end of the week, because we were traveling with Department of Human Services people and education people, they said to me that the mixture of talking to kids and using music seemed to be a really, really amazing thing, because it was just initiating the conversation with these
Right.
kids, and the kids were feeling comfortable. I think because it wasn't just a talk. I wasn't going in there and lecturing them about
Yeah.
abuse. I was sharing with them, but also playing music and making it a comfortable scenario. So I said to them, would you like me to write you a program using music? And that's how it started. It was 30 years ago. And
30 years ago, wow.
um, and I presented the program to over 350,000 kids all around the USA. And then when I moved to England, I wanted to do the program here, but at that time they didn't teach kids. There was nothing going into schools at that time. So I did something else for a while. And then when I retired, I decided to devote my time again to this, learned to animate and re-recorded the songs. And as 7 years later, we've got it in so many countries now, in so many, over 19 languages, and I think we've got it in about 50 countries.
Wow,
now.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's just it's just taken off way beyond anything
Yeah.
that I thought. I'd just put a couple of YouTube videos up. And it's turned out to be a full-time job now.
Yeah, well, I think that's just so amazing. So actually, you were inspired by the story of this little girl who this happened to, and then by sharing your own story, many children came forward, and I think that's such a big part of what makes this so beautiful, because then they feel they are not alone.
Yeah.
Because you said earlier that secrets, and shame, child abuse thrives on those 2 points. Other points as well, I'm sure, but like having some secrets and feeling alone and feeling ashamed, thinking you are the guilty one, makes a lot of children not talk about this.
Absolutely, they don't know. I mean, I grew up thinking I was the only person this had ever happened to, because nobody ever talked about it. Nobody ever said, "Oh, this had also happened to me," because I think and I'm sure there were people in my class or friends of mine that I knew, but we never spoke. And I think my parents were from the sort of age group that never spoke as well. There was just this whole era of people that it was very tight-lipped.
Yeah.
And even when I told my mum what had happened, she didn't really acknowledge it. She just went, "Oh, well, I didn't know," and it was that was it. So we have to teach people that it's okay. We need to talk about this. This happens I mean, there's 1 billion children every year that are abused. I mean, that is nearly 50% of all our kids that are either emotionally, sexually, physically abused every year. And so that means 50% of our adults are abused. So it's a big proportion of our population all around the world that are hurting. And we need to allow them to talk and share.
Absolutely. So I actually have 2 questions for you. One you can answer later, and that is, what's your, what can we do? What can we do as adults to help children feeling safely enough to share this? We have to take it seriously, of course, because otherwise they won't come again. But you can answer that later. But first we have a comment coming in from Andrea Parmar. She is a registered psychiatric nurse, she said earlier in the comments. And so she has shared, and thank you so much for sharing, Andrea. Really appreciate it. She says, I was sexually abused as a child and was bulimic from 15 to 31. What's your view on abuse increasing your chance of developing mental illnesses? She wrote a memoir about it. It says, Alone in a Crowd, a registered psychiatric nurse, 16 years of struggle with bulimia and mental wellness, mental illness, I think she means. So what's your view on that? So the chance on being abused as a child, on developing mental illnesses, and Ashok, I'm sure you have some input for this as well.
Well, I'll go first if that's okay,
Yeah.
because I can relate to that because I went through my own struggles and bulimia as well. Um,
Really?
um, it's yes, the statistics are very high. I mean, we're looking at self-harm, um, suicide, um, poor relationships, difficulty in forming relationships. Um, we have to really target this at an early age and build this awareness with children, that this shouldn't be happening to them, that they have the right to say no, they have also the right to go and talk to somebody, because if we don't, we end up with broken adults. And as I said, I know Ashik will have a lot more in depth to say about this because he deals with the aftermath.
Absolutely.
But this is why I'm so passionate about the program, is to get to not only to teach the children, to teach parents what to look for, to be aware that over 90% of the abuse is happening within their home, within their family, within their close circle of friends. It's not the stranger down the street that we have to be worried about. This is happening within our close knit group of people. And that is why it doesn't come out, because people,
Yeah.
once the shame of, oh, it's someone in our family, or it's somebody that we've trusted with our kids,
Yeah.
people feel ashamed. But we've got to get over that, and we've got to start talking about it, and otherwise we are going to end up with a lot of broken kids. The strong ones, obviously, like me, I've got over it, and I've learned to deal and learned to cope, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ashik.
Thank you, Chrissy.
No, Chrissy, I think that's what you're saying is very powerful. And I will say a few things about my history with PTSD. So I got into psychiatry in 1985, and at that time, post-traumatic stress was really just starting to be talked about, but we weren't talking about child abuse. And it really wasn't until people came out in social media, including you, to say that child abuse is really happening and is a problem. And it took a long time for psychiatry to begin to admit that this was a problem. And what we were seeing, especially what I see in my office, is people who are misdiagnosed with disorders that are really the reaction to their abuse, rather than your problem is that you're bipolar, or that you have an addiction to something, or that you're depressed, or that even if you have a personality disorder. A lot of these things are a reaction to extensive abuse. And it's only quite recently, and this is just such an egregious thing to say, that complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which means the complex means that the person's been traumatized repeatedly, because all the early research was on one singular traumatic event, like being mugged or raped. And it's very rare that a child who's being abused is assaulted once. And for me, just to jump back into the question that our viewer mentioned, is that it's really a disorder of trust. Because when children are born into families, they're supposed to trust the people around them. What happens if the people that you're supposed to trust are not trustworthy? And it's actually crazy making to the child, because they don't know where to put these feelings, and so they come out in inappropriate places or very difficult places. And then if they have a misbehavior, it's the misbehavior that gets all the attention and not what's actually happening. And I want to make a comment. I'll keep quiet in a minute. I want to make a comment about the power of music, because music can allow us to express ourselves more freely, because it fires up different parts of the brain. If I ask someone to start to dance without any music, they might look at me and say, what's that? But the minute you put music on, you can actually start to fire up more of your brain, especially the emotional part of your brain and the memory part of your brain. because it's very common, we're driving along, we hear a song on the radio, it might be an emotional song, and I always cry. So next minute I'm thinking about an old memory, and I'm starting to cry, and I'm thinking, wow, the power of music.
Yeah.
So this is why it's so vital that Chrissy's added music to the message, because it amplifies more of the possibility that people can feel comfortable talking about basically some massive amount of trust that's been broken for them.
Yeah, and they also say that, I mean, if you look at a message that you're giving to a child, as I say, if you're talking, I'm going to give you a lecture about your body or abuse or something like that. Most of the kids are looking out the window or looking at their phones if they've got them, and they're not really concentrating. But the minute you put the music on, it grabs their attention.
Yeah.
And as you say, it also highlights the memory function of their brain. So they're singing the My Body song. People that have done the program in different communities, I know they come back to me and they say, oh, they now call me the My Body is My Body man, or the lady, the My Body lady. So the kids are remembering these messages, and that is what is important. We want the kids to walk away with something, with some empowering messages about their bodies. And as you say, this thing of trust is so important. Parents need to understand that, the trust, when a child is being abused and you don't do something about it, and you choose your partner, or you choose to keep it quiet because you don't want to, the family's reputation or something like that, you're choosing that over your child, and your child knows that. And that's really important to know, that your child needs to come first, and we need to stick up for our kids, and we need to make sure that everybody knows this is a no-go series, and if you do anything, you will be called out.
I want to make a point about love. And we've just come through Valentine's Day, and the problem with child abuse, there's so many problems, but one of it is, if that's the way someone learns what love is about, that can really distort their perception of what love is. And when I work with adults who've been abused, it's very common that a part of them is actually shut away in protective custody because they can't let themselves be loved, and they can't experience depth in relationships, and most importantly, they can't love themselves.
Yeah.
So there's this horrible problem that happens because they're just alienated from parts of themselves, and when they begin to heal and actually integrate, you can see that opening up, and their hearts open up, and they can actually truly and meaningfully start to love self and others and feel safe for the first time in their life.
And I can tell you, it's a hard journey. I can tell you from experience, it is a hard journey. And that's why I'm so passionate about this program. If I can alleviate that problem from kids, then, I'm very determined to do that, because it's a hard and difficult journey to get over the trauma. And the other point I'd like to make is for teachers. I've come across, most places do not teach their teachers about abuse and what to look for and how to report. And it's really, really important to do this, because teachers look at a child and go, oh, that child's so disruptive and got such terrible behavior problems. And it's because there's a problem. We need we need to look at the problems. Why is that child behaving like that?
Exactly.
And if they can look at, what to look for in an abused child, maybe they can find out. And that will make their classrooms a lot better, because you won't have that disruptive behavior in that child, and we can maybe get that child some help as well. So it's really important. Just educating on basics. And I must say the My Body program is a basic program. It's not for sort of it's for everybody. You don't have to have a degree to understand the program. It's for everybody. It's simple and it's just got good basic rules. And that's what everybody needs. Just something simple.
Yes, especially for children, right? Let's please not overcomplicate this, and that's why I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy we can share this program with the audience. Because if we can even help one child today, that makes me happy, right? Love to help lots more, of course. We have a question coming in from Sikander Ali. Hi, Sikander. Thank you for watching and thank you for your question. He says, I believe music is magic. Well, I agree 100%. So, and he says, what do you think about what type of music we have to choose whenever we are sad? What do you guys think?
When you're sad,
When you're
well,
sad?
if
Yeah.
I'm sad, I like to put on something that makes me want to dance. I like dancing, and when I do the housework and things like that, I always put on music, and
Me
I
too.
dance.
Me too.
So if I'm feeling a bit melancholy, I'll do that. Or if I'm feeling very sad, I might about a particular thing. Like it's just been on the 18th. It was the anniversary of my father's death. I'll I might put on a song that reminds me of him and have a little cry just to feel,
Yeah.
just feel that closeness with him. But in general, I think if we're sad, just put on the music nice and loud, and moving your
Yeah.
body always helps you
Yeah.
generate a better mood. I think it helps the dopamine in your brain, and off you go, and you can lift your mood tremendously by playing the right music.
Well, I absolutely agree, and I think you can make some kind of a playlist too, and prepare yourself if you're having a down day and you're feeling not all that happy. Press that playlist, right? Play it, and then choose some of your favorite songs that make you feel good. It's really some kind of attribute to have for when you're feeling down. So, what kind of music do you listen to, Ashok, when you're feeling sad, or do you play your guitar?
Well, you just stole my thunder. Yeah, I find that I write the best music when I'm feeling a bit miserable. And if you think about it, a lot of great music that we listen to, someone's been dumped or they've been through a difficult time. And my favorite thing to do if I'm feeling a bit emotionally poorly is to go into my studio and come up with some songs or record something. I really think any kind of music really is the answer. I think what we're saying here quite quite vigorously is that music by itself fires up parts of our soul and our hearts and our minds in very magical ways. And we have, if you think about it, we have music for every application. And the reason for that is because human beings are so diverse. We have so many different kinds of emotions. But
Mm.
but what I want to say though is that music ultimately, and I'm going to do look, this is my soft toy, right? I'm a guy and I'm holding a soft toy, right? Music is soothing, and I think no matter how old we get or how what our persuasions are, what gender we are, we need to be soothed, and music can be very, very soothing and uplifting. It's a vital part of us. And I think what Chrissy's doing there you go, by combining the music with a very tough and smell, exactly,
Yes, it's
such a powerful sense to elevate our sense of safety as well. But I think really any music that works is what you should try.
well. That was a great
Well,
question.
Actually, now we're talking earlier. I was saying that my husband and I, we perform in old age homes sometimes, and the the sheer joy that you can give to people by playing music
Right.
is brilliant. You start a song and you just see um, either tears rolling down someone's face or the most amazing smile, that when you can see that the memories are coming back. I believe, and probably, because I'm a musician, I feel very strongly about music, but it's just the most powerful thing in the world, to get messages out, to evoke emotions. It just is. It's amazing. Music is really amazing, and I love ethnic music as well. Coming from Africa, I have a very great passion for ethnic music.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So Ali Hassan is asking, as a child, how can a child protect himself from abuse languages of his elders? So verbal abuse, actually, verbal abuse.
Verbal abuse.
Yeah, I think that's, as a child, can be very. How do you protect yourself as a child?
That's difficult. We have to educate the parents as to what kind of damage you do to the children. Again, I feel with abuse programs, we should be teaching young adults from the age of 18 to 25 is where we need to get them, and explain to them, what are you doing to a child when you bring it into the world by physically abusing, sexually abusing, mentally abusing, verbally. We need to show them the terrible trauma that we can impose on a child by being verbally abusive. Most people say, well, I don't hit my kid, but you can do well, I think sometimes more damage by being verbally abusive, because there are no bruises. There is nothing physical. It's just mental. And I think you can do some terrible damage to a child like that.
I think so too.
Again, we have to make people aware, parents, teachers, communities, that we can do a lot of damage to our beautiful children by doing that.
I agree. And I think if you suffer from that as a child, by a parent, by a teacher, by a caregiver, you will remember that for a long time, right? Because these negative experiences, they stick with you,
Absolutely.
And I think especially as a parent, if you abuse your child verbally and you do that repeatedly, when that child grows up, like the voice in that child's head, it's still your abusing, screaming voice, right? That's, even when they grow up, they still hear that voice. Eshak.
Thank you. Yeah, so our sense of self begins to start happening anytime after 3 years of age. And human beings, because we have such a capacity for speech and to receive language, we develop a sense of our physical self, our outside self. We also develop a mental image of ourselves on the inside. If your mental image on the inside starts with a lot of helpful affirmation on the outside, that can really encourage that child to be the best version of themselves, especially when by the time they reach their teen years, they can now continue that dialogue inside their mind of positivity. The reverse is true. If that child is told negative things about themselves as soon as they can unpack the dishwasher, for example, and that keeps going, even if there's lots of positive stuff, if there's lots of negative stuff interspersed in there, it would literally poison their self-image of self. And this is what I've had to spend countless hours with people, is helping detoxify their mind of their psychological view of themselves. And what Chrissy said, there's no bruises with verbal abuse, is so beautifully said, because that's very, very true.
Right.
That bruise is much harder to make fade away in adult life than if someone fell and broke their arm as a child. And so I think it's vital that we teach people who are going to become parents that this is how you can create a child who feels safe with themselves. This is how you can create an optimal psychological environment for a child. And we know that things are going to happen occasionally, but this is how you forgive that moment and repair that so that it's not remembered in a negative way subsequently.
Yeah, it's not a way of life. I mean, as parents, we all do things that are wrong,
Yes.
no matter how hard we try, you know.
Also true. Yes.
But if we are aware of what damage we can cause to our children, then we become mindful, and that's what it is. And I'm not knocking a parent that might lose their temper once in a while, as you were
Right.
saying, but if it becomes something that happens all the time, you have to be aware that you are causing massive damage to your child.
Yes.
And that is what we need to be aware of. And our children, they come out and they're born so beautiful and so innocent, and we need to nurture that and build on that. I did want to mention something about you said about kids being self-aware from the age of 3. That's why I always say to people, you can start teaching the My Body program from the age of 3. Once children become aware of their bodies, a 3-year-old that can say, no, I don't want you to do that, or I feel uncomfortable with you doing that. How wonderful is that for a child to be able to say that? And also, when we go and visit parents and aunties and uncles and things like that, and you have your child and you go and say, go and kiss so and so, and they go, no, I don't want to, and you go, no, go and kiss them, and you force them into that. We shouldn't be doing that. If your child does not want to go and kiss or hug somebody else, there may be a reason why they feel uncomfortable doing that. So
Right.
what you can say is right, you mustn't be rude. You can go and shake hands or just go and say hello. You give them an alternative, but don't force your child into doing things that make them feel uncomfortable with their bodies. Give them that empowerment so that they grow up with that empowerment.
Exactly, and that they are allowed to set boundaries regarding their
Right.
own bodies.
Yes. We need that, because as we become teenagers and girls and boys start experimenting, a lot of times you just feel like, oh, well, I did. I thought, I feel worthless. Somebody's showing me some attention. I didn't think, oh, wow, this is my body and it belongs to me and I have a right to say no.
Exactly.
You have to teach that to a child, and boys and girls. Don't think this is just for girls. Boys
Very true.
have the right as well, as much as the girls, to say no. I don't want that to happen. We often forget when we're talking sexual abuse to address boys, and
Yeah.
it's just as important.
So Ali is asking one other question. Ali Hassan, thank you so much for your contribution. Actually, he's asking, like, as an outsider, if you who are suffering from parents' language abuse, verbal abuse, how can we help?
As an outsider, you mean, and not as part of the family?
Yeah. So, for instance, you see in your circle, you have a family, and you see they're verbally abusing the child. Like maybe you're the uncle, maybe you're the nephew. I don't know.
Yeah.
What can you do?
I think to find somebody within the family that has the respect, and usually there's like some kind of matriarch in the family that
Right.
people will listen to. I would approach that person.
Mm.
Hopefully it's somebody that's sensible and that will listen and say, could you have a word with this person? There is something going on, and this is going to be very detrimental to the child. If that approach doesn't work, it might be that you approach the person themselves. Again, it all depends the person, and I think Ashik probably could give us better advice on this, but I would definitely do something about it. I would definitely not just leave the child to be abused. We have got to start standing up for our kids, and we've got to start getting involved in the family circle and saying that this is not acceptable. to treat a child like this.
Thank you. Andrea is saying, I'm so glad the conversation is going on, so vitally important. I'm a huge advocate for mental health and peeling back the layers to help others. Thank you so much, Andrea. Really appreciate it. Ashok, do you have something to add about?
It's very complex, actually, because in Canada, as a physician, we're obliged to report child abuse.
Yes.
Even if we hear it as hearsay, we don't actually have to witness it. So someone tells me that their neighbor is doing this to a child, I have to find out who that neighbor is and call the authorities. The problem with it is that there's very little protection for verbal abuse.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has to be sort of explicit. And I've called Children's Aid many, many times in my practice. And they're a fabulous organization. So it's very useful to have that. But sometimes they can't do anything unless there's enough that's happened. It's a terrible spot to be in, where you know that a child is suffering in a situation, but they don't have enough evidence at the child abuse level for the authorities to step in and do something. So I do have a bit of a habit of confronting people gently, hopefully, just with information. Do you realize that this can hurt? But I think Chrissy's point is the most golden one, is that we have to get the kids and the teenagers and the young adults involved in realizing that this is the best way to be when you become parents towards your children. And the occasional oops and the occasional mistake, the occasional bad word that might come out, this is going to happen. But it's also what you do with that. If we move towards a safe environment for children to be in, even if they are upset by something, they will feel safe to tell somebody about it, or even to confront the person that's hurting them, say, when you do that, that hurts me, or tell someone that can help. And so I think it is a bit complex, but if we keep being silent and blind on the issue doesn't change.
And nothing will change.
These conversations that we're having today with Chrissy is so vital, because we're actually normalizing the conversation.
Yes.
And so that's why I think it's so important to have Chrissy on board with us.
Absolutely. And Chrissy, back to the program, My Body is My Body. Can you share a little bit about what kind of organizations or institutions have used your program successfully?
Oh, yes. I work with lots of NGOs around the world. But it's also supported by ISPCAN, which is the International Society for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect, which is, I believe, the only worldwide association of pediatricians and researchers and around the world, and people that are involved in child abuse prevention. It's used by Compassion International. I'm working with Cognizant with their volunteers. I think we've got 26,000 volunteers around the world. Lots and lots of different NGOs. I teach them, and also I've got 2 courses on the Global Goodwill Ambassadors Learning Institute. So we also, it's the major, it's the educational program in Global Goodwill Ambassadors. So we've got 16,000 members as well, that we're trying to get the program out into their communities. But the courses are there to introduce again the program to people. The first course is an introduction to child maltreatment, to tell you the statistics about how bad it is out there, what it can do to children, how to deal with a child if they report abuse to you, to be very supportive, to not get angry, to thank the child for sharing with you. So that's all in the course. It's only about 45 minutes, so it's not a long course, but it's very informative as to the basics again of what people need to know. And there's also a form there to say if a child does tell you something, how to fill it in, and to fill it in with the child's words. Very important. Don't translate it into what you think happened. always use the child's words, because that's so important. And then I also need to tell you that everything on this program is free. I don't do this for any kind of compensation. I offer it all to everybody at no charge. And then I've just completed the second program on the GGA website, Learning Institute, which is how to teach the program to kids. So if you thought, oh, I'd like to do this, but I'm not sure how to do it, it goes through every single song. It's got a lesson plan there, and it's got a little children's workbook, so you can get the kids involved in drawing and coloring and doing all sorts of things. So it's all there for you. You don't have to feel uncomfortable, and you don't have to feel like you're on your own trying to do this. It's all there, very simple and easy to use. And then all the videos are on YouTube. So
That's fantastic.
help yourself.
And it's in many languages available, right? Because I know it's even available in Dutch.
We've got it in Dutch,
yes.
Arabic, Portuguese, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi. I'm busy doing Bangla now. It's in Croatian, in Xhosa for South Africa. You know, and it's all been done by volunteers. That's why I can offer it for free. We get people all around the world to translate, to sing the songs, to do it all. It's just been a great, you know, sort of, it's everybody's program. That's why I say, you know, this is not my program. This is everybody's program, because lots and lots of people have put into it and shared it, and the people that take it out into the communities also just do it as volunteers. So it's brilliant. You know, it's been a wonderful journey for me, and it really, you know, this is my therapy.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. Ashok, you have something to say?
I just want to say something, because, you know, I founded the Empathy Clinic, and every now and then I find people who are incredibly empathic. And Chrissy, you are incredibly empathic. And what's beautiful about what you're doing is there's a selflessness to your motive here. And I'm always trying to get people to see, like the way you're describing, you want to get the children's own words. Let them tell their story. That's one of the core issues of empathy, is to let people experience themselves as themselves and try not to contaminate their version of that story. So to hear you say this gives me a chance to just remind people of the power of empathy, the beauty of empathy, but also how healing it can be.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You know, it's definitely. And I mean, the other thing that's been wonderful with this journey is just the amazing people. You know, sometimes you look at the world and you feel, oh my goodness, you know, there's so many horrible people out there and things like that. But when you're doing something like this, you find out that there are so many amazing people out there in the world. And
There are.
yes, it just sort of boosts your morale as to there are more nice people and more good things going on than there are bad.
Absolutely, right? And when you turn on the news, there it is, the negative messages and everything.
Always.
And I think it's really important that there are much more positive things happening, much more beautiful, empathetic people out there wanting to help other people. And that's so important, you know, and you're one of them, absolutely. And Ashok too. So that's amazing.
And Tisha too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Chrissy, just for our viewers, after the show, I will put the links to your programs in the comments so people can find it and use it. And I would say to the audience, if you have any questions, message Chrissy on LinkedIn. If you have any questions regarding the program, because she's the creator, she's the expert, and well, she can tell you all about it. Chrissy, I want to thank you so much for sharing. I have one last question for you. Okay. Can you share, because we had a preparation session for this show, right? You shared to us if you can call it a success story, some kind of breakthrough that happened in a family regarding 3 generations. Do you remember that?
Oh yes,
Yes.
I
Can
do.
you share that? So, just as an example of what can this program do in a family?
Yes. I was in Tennessee doing a program for a school, and this little girl came up and after the program, because what I used to do after the program is I used to say to all the children, right, I want you to go back to the classroom and I want you to write me a letter. Now, I want you to tell me if you enjoyed the program, if you didn't enjoy the program, if you like the songs. I'd give them all sorts of things. And then I'd say, and if you are having any problems, you can tell me. You write it down in the letter. And so we'd get all these things back, and kids would say, oh, I liked your singing and things like that. And then we'd get letters saying, I'm being abused. And literally we would work from 15% up to 25% of the kids would write that they are having some kind of abuse. So this one little girl wrote that she was being abused, and of course I would go in with social services and stuff like that, and school counselors. So we would have the backup to look after the kids after the program. And a little while later, I got a letter from the principal to say, well, actually, he forwarded me a note from the family to say that this little girl had come in and told about her abuse and stopped the abuse that had been happening for 3 generations in their family. The grandfather had abused his daughter, the daughter there, and now the grandchild. So it was just amazing. And he said that the family just said, thank you so much for enabling her to come forward and say something, because all the other people in the past had not
Yeah.
had the courage to speak up. So yes, but how amazing if we could have got to the first child, and it
Exactly.
would have happened through the generations.
But that goes to show, those ladies, those women were grown up already, have children of their own. And
Yeah.
it again happened, and nothing was done to stop it. And then this little girl, because of this program, felt brave enough to open up it. And I think that's so beautiful to share, and that's something that your program can do. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So I just wanted the audience to know about this, and to feel encouraged to use this program, introduce it to schools around you, because I think many children and many teachers and caregivers can benefit from this, you know?
Definitely. Anyone that works with children in sport, after school activities, anything, we have to get. I say, parents need to do it, but a lot of times parents either don't have time, they don't feel comfortable. So we have to pick up the kids that aren't being taught at home, either
Exactly.
in schools or, even a lot of people in churches have done the program. And because the program is not confrontational, it doesn't go into sex, people don't feel uncomfortable. So
Right.
it can be taught anywhere by anyone, and in any circumstance, even in the most um, what's the word I'm looking for? In communities um, that would normally never talk about this sort of thing.
Yes.
Um,
So many cultures
yes, even
can
with
use
fathers.
it.
We had a fathers group in Saudi Arabia doing the program.
That's
It's
fantastic.
just all over the place, and nobody has ever come back to me and said we're not comfortable with it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's fantastic. That it's open enough to be used by many cultures, and I think that's what we need.
yeah,
Because children are children wherever they live.
exactly. And people say to me, oh, well, do you change the program, for different cultures? And it's no, the program is the program. It's basic. It's just knowledge that every parent and every child needs to know, whether they come from India to Saudi Arabia, to America, to Brazil. It's the same message.
Yes.
We need to protect our kids, no matter where they live in the world.
I think that's a beautiful closing message, Chrissy. We need to protect our children.
Yeah, we do.
That's fantastic. Yes. I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here today, sharing about this program. So very important. Again, for the audience, after the show is over, I will put the links to the program in the comments, and then you can access them. And if you have any questions, please message Chrissy about this. Chrissy Sykes, you can find her on LinkedIn. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again, Chrissy. Thank you, Ashok. We will be back in another 2 weeks with another episode of the Balance and Empathy Show. See you then. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Most welcome. We seem to have trouble ending the broadcast for StreamYard somehow. So I think when we just leave the studio, the show will end on itself. Okay. Let's try that. Okay.
Thank you,
bye, everyone.
Really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.